important is consistency when it comes to picking races in Photo Finish Live? In my previous video, I showed that by figuring out what type of race your horse excels at can help you make a better selection in the races you choose for your horse. But it turns out there may be one more step involved. Hi, I'm Jeffo, also known as Digital Romad on Twitter, and welcome to my video, Pulling Apart Iran. This is the story of a horse, not a country. Our story begins with this foal, Storm Blossom. I saw her while cruising through the marketplace recently, and it was a B plus horse, and I was particularly interested in buying a B plus horse. I wanted to add one to my stable of foals. I have some A's, some A minuses, A plus, and an S minus in my stable, but I wanted to add a B plus just to play around with. I've seen a lot of B plus horses do really well against A rated horses and even some S minus horses, so I wanted to play around with one of my own, and this one was only $9,995 Derby, or about $125. And it seemed like an affordable way to play around with a B plus horse at some point. Now, this particular horse has about 5 stars, it looks like, from his preference ratings. It's not the strongest horse in the world. 2.5 stars on a right turning course, 1.5 on dirt, and 1 on soft. But, I wanted to play around with this, so I decided I wanted to take a look at the bloodline to see if there's anything in the bloodline that might make me interested in this particular horse, given the fact that I thought, under 10,000 was a fairly decent value for a B plus horse. This is what I saw. A horse named Iran is this horse's dad, is Storm Blossom's dad, or the foal of Storm Blossom's dad, I should say. And look at that. He's run 75 races. And he's been on the podium 60 times in 75 races. He has an 80% success rate of showing up on the podium, meaning every 5 races this horse runs, 4 of them he's going to end up on the podium. That to me was a what the fuck mind blown moment, because I have not seen that in any of the horses I've looked at over the last several weeks, and I've looked at well over 200, 250 horses easily. It's the first time I've seen something where a horse has that kind of winning percentage on such a regular basis. So of course, I absolutely had to dig into Iran. I wanted to see what this horse was all about. Immediately, you can see he's a much stronger horse than his offspring. He's got, what's that, 8.5 stars. So clearly a very strong horse. But still, the fact that he had such a winning run before retirement, I really wanted to understand what made this horse so successful beyond just the fact that he has multiple stars. And so I pulled apart the Excel spreadsheet in the normal way that I would, and you can see clearly through all the red there, these are all his win, place, and show. Clearly this is a long distance horse, likes running 10, 11, 12 furlongs. He tried 9 furlongs once came in 4th and never tried it again. Clearly he's a dirt horse, as you would expect given his strong star ratings, preference ratings in that area. And conditions, he's run in fast conditions twice, run in good conditions a few times, but clearly this horse's strengths is running in sloppy conditions, soft conditions, and yielding conditions. So, if you were to rate this horse and say, what is he strong at? Clearly he's a strong mudder. He loves sloppy weather at long distance. That's what this horse is all about. I also went and looked at race type as I normally do, and I showed you how I do this in the previous video. I literally go race by race by hand, determining what kind of race this horse ran. I click on the race link in the Excel file, and I see if it was an allowance race, a handicap, a stakes, whatever it is, and I annotate it in a column in my Excel spreadsheet. But I decided I wanted to go a little beyond that. There are different kinds of allowance races and different kinds of stakes races, and does that make any difference? Well, this is Iran. You can see here that this horse has consistently run the exact same types of race over and over and over and over. The only times he's ever ventured away from that is few and far between. Instead of running allowance A minus S minus, he once ran an allowance B minus S minus, and he did pretty well at it. He also, instead of running stakes A minus, he ran a stakes A plus and a stakes A minus or S minus, and he did well at those as well. But the fact remains that throughout his entire 75 race history, this horse has consistently run the exact same race over and over again. He found his niche and he stuck to that niche. He did not venture away from that. And to me, that's an incredibly smart way of determining how to run your horse, understanding the very detailed specifics of the kinds of races he's good at. And this is the value of smart race selection. Instead of venturing all over the map with different kinds of races, this horse stuck to his knitting, understand exactly what he should be running at, or at least the owner did, understand exactly what this horse should be running at, paid entry fees of $95,706 Derby over those 75 races, came out to an average of about $1,200 and something Derby per race as an entry fee. He never paid more than $2,500 for an entry fee, so he wasn't racing at the high levels. He was racing at sort of consistent low and medium levels. The entry fees cost him about $1,200 US overall. But here's the result of that consistency, of picking the same races over and over and over again. He won $123,400 Derby, or about $1,540, which means over his 5-month racing career, Iran had a 28.9% return on investment. And if you annualize that over the full 7 racing seasons that we get out of a horse, it would have been about a 41% return, which isn't too terribly bad on your entry fees. I mean, you're doing quite well there. And because of that success, because he's on the podium 80% of the time, that shows up in breeding statistics. When people are looking, what horse do I want to pick to breed my filly with, and they see a colt or a stallion at that point who has, an 80% win rate, I want to breed with that horse. So this guy has picked up 16, or this stables has picked up 16 breeding opportunities, $8,000 or 8,000 Derby each. So he's brought in $1,600 worth of Derby just from breeding. That's not a bad deal. And on top of that, he's brought in nearly 10,000 crown, if my math is correct from going through the horse's ledger. Nearly $3,000 worth of crown in those 5 racing seasons he's been in. Of course, crown is going away at the end of season 13, and we're now in season 8. So we only have a few more seasons to benefit from that. But still, it's a nice benefit, And even beyond that, just having this kind of win rate and the breeding opportunities that this horse has. Remember, he is now going to be able to breed for many more seasons. And if he's bringing in, $1,600 a season or $1,600 a month or even more, we're only a few days into this season, he's brought in $1,600, then clearly you can see that this kind of smart race selection that generates or creates a horse that has this kind of winning record from that smart race selection means you end up with a horse who stands out in the breeding stables over many seasons, and you're going to be bringing in a lot of extra income from a retired racehorse simply because you made really smart race selections when that horse was active. Overall, this horse brought in more than $6,000 in 5 months just from this one single horse from racing, from breeding, and from crown. Again, a crown will go away, but the breeding over the next many seasons that this horse still has, he's going to bring in a nice chunk of income. The question is, can his offspring, which I've named I Run, can he do the same thing? Can Iran yield a horse I Run that is capable of, replicating Dad's successes to some degree, even though he does not have the preference ratings that Dad has? And it leads me to questions, to what degree do strong genetics play a role in a horse that ends up with weakened preferences? Will those genetics play through to a degree. So, if this particular horse wins at, allowance A minus to A plus, let's say, can he consistently win there? Or is it just going to be a bit of a crapshoot because he doesn't have the same kind of preference strengths that Dad has? And will Iran demonstrate, that same degree of consistency as Iran when it comes to race selection? These are things I'm going to have to find out. But it still brings the entire process here that I've gone through really shows that Iran, the horse, is a masterclass in detailed race selection, not just picking an allowance race, but what kind of allowance race. This is an example of a random horse I was looking at. I was looking at a different foal and pulled up a dad. And this was the dad's results over 28 races. He was in 16 different types of races over those 28 races. And in allowance alone, he ran 10 allowance races, but there were 5 different kinds of allowance races. And you can see he was hit or miss. He had a few wins here, but mainly it was losses, and there was just really no consistency to what kind of race this horse was running. And some of that could be that, well, the owner was trying to figure out what race was best for this horse and was going all over the map trying to figure that out. And that's a legitimate possibility. Or it could be that the owner wasn't really paying attention to these kinds of details and was just picking an allowance race here to see if it worked, and picking a claiming race there to see if it worked, and picking a stakes race to see if it worked. Because you can see with stakes A minus, he did okay, A he did okay, A minus he did okay again, but then there's S minuses in there that he clearly didn't do well at. There was an A plus he clearly didn't do well at. So this was a real hit or miss, and I don't know again if the owner of this horse was just trying to figure out where this horse's jam really is, or if it was just randomly picking races. But the fact that Iran is so consistent with picking the exact same race over and over and over and over again tells you, or at least shows you, the possibility that, in Photo Finish Live, success really is going to come from picking the specific type of race for your horse, not just a general allowance race or a general stakes race, but a particular kind of allowance race and a particular kind of stakes race. And with that, I will say, see you on the podium.